I came to Nashville in 1967 at the behest of a friend of mine, Bob Johnston. Took over the Columbia operation here, and he said, "You want to come to Nashville?" I said, "Well, certainly. I've always wanted to live in Nashville," so I came. And I was kind of low man on the totem pole, when I came in 1969. Bob Dylan came to town to do Nashville Skyline, and I had asked Bob. I said, "See, anyway, Bob was Dylan's producer, along with Simon and Garfunkel and Marty Robbins and Johnny Cash, and the list goes on." I said, "Anyway, you can put me on one Dylan session. I'm such an admirer of his, and I just like to be able to always say I play." He said, oddly enough, 15 sessions they had booked to do Nashville Skyline. The very first session, the guitar player that was going to play all the rest of them could not make the first one. So you come and play on the first one. So I did. And when I got finished, I was packing my instruments up to leave, and Bob Dylan asked Bob Johnson, he said, "Where's he going?" And he said, "He's leaving. I got another guitar player coming." He said, "I don't want another guitar player. I want him." Those 9 words meant more to me and were such a shot in the arm to me and such an encouragement to me. Because I'd had hit some, pretty hard licks since I'd been here trying to compete. Nashville's a really competitive town. And anyway, it was really encouraging, and of course it made me that much bigger a fan. And so anyway, all these years that I have admired Bob Dylan, and I got ready to do an album, and I thought I am going to do a tribute album to Bob. So we call it Off the Grid, which means it's an acoustical album, the only one we've ever done, the only acoustical album, doing Dylan. 10 Bob Dylan songs that we took and tried to put our mark on them. I didn't want to do them exactly the way he did them, but put our mark on them.
And of those in the album, what is your own personal favorite tune, or you think is the best one you perform?
There's a song called "You Got to Serve Somebody" that we did a very unique arrangement on. We did pretty unique arrangements on all of them, but the one that is totally different from the way that he did it, with a different feel to it and everything, I'm pretty proud of that one.
You may be a socialite with a big long string of pearls, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Serve somebody. You're gonna have to serve somebody.
The thing about doing Dylan stuff, you never run out of material. I mean, there's just song after song after song. So if I came across one that I didn't feel like we did a good job of, right here in the studio where we are is where we recorded. And we would be in here with the band, and if we started doing something and it didn't feel like it was we could put our mark on it. If it didn't feel like it could be us, doing it, if it was too much like the way Dylan did it or whatever, we just bypass it and go to another song. So all the songs that we picked out, I feel we did put our mark on.
Of the music you have written and recorded, your favorite is?
Our signature song, a song called "Devil Went Down to Georgia." I mean, that's the one that, if you say Charlie Daniels Band in London, that's probably the only thing they could remember of ours, or Australia or something. So, oh yeah, I know that one song. Though I've got something like 50 albums out and literally hundreds of songs, that would be the only one they would remember. But now, as it being my favorite song, I don't know if I could say it was. I've got songs that are kind of obscure that I really like. I got a song called "Caroline, I Remember You" that speaks of growing up in North Carolina when I was a young man, a kid from infancy on. That means a lot to me. We started at a station called WWGP in Sanford, North Carolina. And it was a low wattage station, but it was the station in town, it was one station in town, of course. We played it in the mornings for a good while, and then we got smart, we got afternoon shows, so we played Saturday afternoon.
Well, what kind of music were you playing?
Mainly bluegrass and country. We played a lot of bluegrass. We were really into Bill Monroe and Flatt and Scruggs and all those people, but we still did some of the kind of popular music. We did maybe a Hank Snow tune or, a Hank Williams song or something like that, but basically bluegrass. I used to be almost a bluegrass purist. That's all I wanted to hear was bluegrass music. Let me tell you the first money I ever made playing. This friend of mine who had actually taught me to play, his daddy ran a service station in this little town of Gulf, North Carolina, which was about 9 miles from Sanford, just a wide place in the road. And we were sitting down there one Saturday night at his store with a fiddle and a guitar. We were just playing away, and this car stopped by to get gas or something, and there was 2 couples in it, just 2 men, 2 women. They both got out. The lady said, "Play us something," and Russell popped up, this friend of mine popped up and said, "You got any money?" She reached in her purse and pulled out 4 dimes. So 20 cents was my first fee for playing, and we played a couple of tunes for him. But I played anywhere I could. I played, any kind of square dance, any kind of place I could find. And then I moved back to Wilmington, North Carolina, which is my ancestral home, if you will, where I was born. And somebody came up to me and said, we're going to start working at a beer joint in Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is a home of the 2nd Marine Division and one of the few places that had a club population.
A club being a beer joint.
A club being a beer joint. Absolutely. That was all there was. That's all they could serve was beer. So I started working up there 6 nights a week. I had a daytime job, and I did manual labor. In the summer of 1958, there was things that kind of slowed down, and they were going to lay somebody off. The guy that I worked with was a black guy named Lewis Frost. I never will remember. He trained me. He trained my daddy. My daddy was in the same business. But they were going to lay somebody off. They were going to lay him off for one reason, because he was black and I was white. They would keep me. I knew 1/10 as much about the job as he did. And I said, look, this man's got a family. I've got another job. I've been kind of wanting to leave anyway, so you keep him and let me go. Never looked back since then. 1958, summer of 58, I left and started playing full-time at the beer joints up in Jacksonville. And then finally ended up going up to Washington, D.C. area and playing the beer joints up there.
Did you start on fiddle or guitar?
I started on guitar. I started, this friend of mine, I had known him for years. I had no idea he had a guitar. I don't know where he got it from. I never did find out. But
You were what age? You
I was probably 15, 14, 15. I went to his house one day and he had this old Stella guitar. The neck on it was about the size of half of a fence post. The strings were probably were ones that came on it. It was hard. They were way up off the neck. Yeah. And he knew about 2.5 chords. I said, oh, you got to teach me that. So anyway, he started teaching me, and we started bugging anybody in the neighborhood that we could find that knew a chord on a guitar that we didn't know. And we were just eat up with it. We were just a couple of young guys that really eat up with learning how to play. So everybody else was gone to the movies, and me and him were sitting there learning to play. So then I started, somebody showed up with a mandolin one day, and I took it and learned a little bit on it. The fingerboard on a mandolin and a fiddle are the same. Mm-hmm. So then I got a hold of a fiddle, and instead of doing this, you do this. And so.
What's the difference between the fiddle and the violin?
There is no difference. I went to see it, Zach Perlman, at the Opera House here, where we're going to be tonight, in fact. And somebody took me backstage, and I said, good evening, Mr. Perlman. I'm Charlie Daniels. I'm a fiddle player. He said, we're all fiddle players. So if he says we're fiddle players, you know, in my book, the greatest violinist in the world, and by gosh, we're all fiddle players.
Well, down here,
yes,
it's a little bit in the dark, but over here you have what, a mandolin?
That's a mandolin. That's a mandolin.
And over here is a fiddle.
That's a fiddle or violin, if you want to call it.
And the difference between a mandolin and a fiddle is?
Well, this one, the mandolin, of course, you play it like this. This is electric, so it don't make much sound. And then, of course, the fiddle, you got to pull the bow on the strings to make it work. It's the same fingering. You put the fingers. And of course, when I do it, I do it all wrong. I had kids ask me all the time about playing the fiddle. I said, do not look at me when you play the fiddle. I hold the bow wrong. I hold the bow like this. I hold the fiddle wrong. You're supposed to support it with your neck and reach over it like this. I support it with my hand. I push too hard on the strings. That's why I tear so many bow hairs up. So I said, don't look at me. It works for me. It may not work for you. You'll drive your violin teacher crazy. Don't play like I do. Look at Johnny Gamble or somebody, some really good fiddle player. But I have my own style of playing, and I have my own sound because I do press too hard on the strings, and I do things that would run an ordinary fiddle player crazy, but it works for me. So.
Now, did you have lessons? Did you have guitar lessons,
can't read music.
Mandolin lessons, fiddle lessons?
No, can't read music. The only thing I read is chords, but I can't read notes. You put notes down, it just evades me. I can't do it.
Were you ever into drink so heavily you worried about it?
No.
Ever into drugs?
No. I would be lying to you if I told you I had never done any of that, because I have. But I have never had a problem with it.
How did you avoid that?
I had things in my life that were more important than that. I have such a great respect for this business, and I have had such a burning desire to make something out of my life in it. I loved it so much. I wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to be successful at it. And I wanted to do it on the big stage. I didn't want to play the beer joints. I wanted to make records. I wanted to do all the good things. And I found out early on that you cannot party all night and sleep till 4 o'clock in the afternoon and get up with a fuzzy head and do a good job. So you decide, do I want that or do I want a career? Nothing was going to separate me from that desire. Not Jack Daniels, not cocaine, not any kind of drug or anything. Nothing was going to keep me from that.
You and I both know that the road is littered with the career carcasses of people because they were on the road so constantly. Either drink, drugs, or what should we call it, an eye for a well-turned ankle. Those are the big three. There's so many crashed and burned on that.
I've seen it happen, but it's like I say, do you value that or do you value your career? Because you can't have them both. Anybody that's coming into the music business because they think it's glamorous, and it is, but if that's all you're coming in for, do yourself a favor and play at the Holiday Inn Lounge on Friday and Saturday night and work a daytime job and stay at home, because you're going to be sorely, sorely disappointed. There is so much beneath the waterline. There's so much preparation. There's so much devotion, and it takes staying current. It takes doing interviews. It takes keeping up with everything. It takes keeping the band rehearsed, keeping the band happy. Only the people who have it here and here are going to make it, really make it. I mean, longevity was always the big deal to me. It was not, I want to go in and make a bunch of money and go buy a Greek island, you know. I didn't want that. I wanted to be a part of this business, which I have for 56 years now.